Entry 10. The Caves of 90IK. The caves. That was next. Hopefully, I could find some real good leads on Galeshard's plan, including finding out who this god of light is. I asked Mitchell to join me, and he showed me new, more effective suits to cause the mysterious caves effect to pass over us. The suits glowed in the dark and could be switched on and off. Furthermore, they could distort any shadow path sensors, so they could not sense our movements or heartbeats. The main entrance to the caves, the one Gale used, was unsalvageable. It was destroyed, and there was no way of getting in.
"Hold on,"
Mitchell said,
pausing our journey. "Take a look at this map."
"Okay."
"See over there?"
He pointed at an old mine on the map.
"We might be able to get into the caves from there."
"The mines of 90IK, I murmur. "Let's do it." The entrance was old, and when I brushed away the dust from the mine's pillars, I saw strange symbols similar to the ones we found on the monolith. "This place is creepy," I said, as we began the journey into the mine, our suits glowing a pale blue to light the way.
"It sure is,"
Mitchell replied.
"Hope we don't encounter any demon teacher things. What were they?"
"Shadow paths," I finished. We continued down the bizarre cave, which was lined with strange rocks that appeared to shift in age as we continued. It was bizarre, seeing a calm stone suddenly shift, distort, and melt into a fine jewel, which would disappear and reappear as a strange, cool sludge. Then, when we turned a corner, we saw something truly bizarre. Blocking our path was a gate, made out of a cool, weathered jade. I felt it, and it was wet and cool. I looked at the floor. A wet mud that seemed to glow and change with the flow of time. The gate did not glow with the movements of time, which did not make sense. "It's odd," I murmur.
"How do we get past it?"
Mitchell asked. "I'm not quite sure, but suddenly I felt something buzz in my jacket pocket. I took out the skull of the blinded. There was a small hole forming in its skull, shifting, cracking, until a small key protruded from it. I tried to take it out, but it seemed like it was part of the skull."
"Wait, look,"
Mitchell warned, looking at the gate. There were letters in neat English.
"Abandon all hope, ye who enter here."
"I think we've brought enough protection," I countered, pointing at our pistols, which were at our sides. Mitchell shrugged, and I shoved the skull key device into the gate's keyhole, opening it. Once I pushed the gate open, we both jumped back in shock. There was a black statue missing a head. It was long and slender, with its limbs long and hands clawed. The statue's feet reminded me of an ostrich.
"The hell is that?"
Mitchell screamed, feeling its soft, very real hair, which seemed to be all over its body. "I've no clue," I lied. It looked awfully familiar.
Let's continue."
Mitchell hesitated. We continued down the hall, which led to a room. Yet, something bothered me. There were lights on the ceiling, yet something was blocking most of it. There were bunk beds, and when I looked up into the ceiling, there it was. There were corpses hanging from the ceiling, all wrapped in the same hair as the statue. They all shook side to side, putting fear into my soul.
"What are you?"
Mitchell looked up as well.
"What the?"
Something wasn't right here, and I knew it. I rushed over to the beds and felt them. To my surprise, there was a body, mummified in the strange hair inside. All the beds had ancient, mummified bodies. What the heck was going on? Mitchell took a knife out and cut into a body. Instead of blood or organs showing, there was nothing but a pale black sludge inside them. He scraped the black goo into a vial and put it away. Next, that was bizarre, were barrels with glowing, shifting rocks inside them. I dropped a stick inside one, and it seemed to be absorbed by the material. "Quasium, property of Black Star," I read, reading the label on it. I looked around, searching for an entrance that could lead us deeper into the cave. I could tell there once were many, but all of them had been destroyed. By bizarre, impossible chance, I looked back at the hall from where we came from, and I saw the headless, hair-covered statue facing us, instead of the gate. Mitchell noticed it too. We decided to install a camera, so we could watch what had happened. "Here," I called, looking underneath a bunk bed. "There's some sort of trapdoor." We shoved the bed away, using all our power, and found the trapdoor. The same icky black goo was found on it, but using gloves, we opened the door. There were stairs, leading into a cave. I entered first, climbing down. As soon as I did, everything felt different. It was too cold inside, like entering a ventilated building. There was a deep red mist on the ground, and I almost tripped on several rocks. On the top of the cave were these strange cocoons with things inside them. Mitchell cut into them, revealing just slime and bones of something unknown. All of a sudden, we reached this temple. It was different from the one I saw Gale Shardsome and Leviathan Cain in, and it was smaller, like a shrine. There were two headless, hair-coloured statues sitting outside it, like guardians. They seemed less stone and more cocoon, and when I poked at it with a knife, it just seemed to stretch, trying to take my knife inside it.
"Wait,"
Mitchell snapped, alerting me.
"Something's watching us."
"What do you—"
"Don't move! I can see something just out of the corner of my eye."
I stood still, watching. There was something. I could sense it. I caught sight of something moving, breathing. It was a dark, hairy mass, and I couldn't make sense of it at first until it... Was it a person?
"Guns, now!"
Mitchell yelled, and we both picked up our guns and ran at it. Only, when we arrived, whatever the hairy thing was, it wasn't there. That's when we noticed that the wall was covered in living, breathing hair. There was something embedded into the wall. We quickly noticed it to be a dead something. We couldn't identify it, but it seemed like a human. Whatever it was, there was something in its hand. A note. "The things in the mines have infected us all. We will not return to the public, for what we have can doom our race. The majority of us were driven to madness, and we had to hang them, or kill them for the sake of the world. To anyone reading this, the sickness is from the shrine, from an ancient god that says they are light. There is an insect we have discovered. It lives in the statues, which aren't statues. The first to be infected was a man named Johnson, and he was driven mad until we saw the insect in his eyes, dancing and mad. It was only a matter of time before he began to cough and infect the others. Leave immediately, and tell everyone what has become of us. From the jade chest in the shrine room, we have created a gate to stop you from entering. But you did not listen. Leave now, before the moon rises, or the guards will rise, and you will die." "This isn't suspicious at all," I murmured. "What now?" There was silence. I looked around. Where was Mitchell? I looked everywhere, and I didn't see him or any trace of him. "Mitchell!" I called, confused. No answer. I entered the shrine. Perhaps he had found something. There was only a headless, hair-covered statue. Behind me, I heard something crack, loud and disturbing. I made a mistake and looked. The statues that guarded the entrance were facing me. Beyond that, I saw the statue from the entrance block my path to escaping. I raised my gun, confused. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I heard something shake in my pocket. The skull. I took it out and it was large enough to fit as a head for the statue right in front of me. It began to pull itself onto the statue, and I pulled myself back, resisting its pull. What the hell was happening? I couldn't hold the skull much longer, so I tried to run from the shrine, but I felt two cool, sticky hands grab me. I turned to see the headless statues holding me in place as I accidentally dropped the skull, which flew into the air and onto the headless statue. The statue began to crack, and then something began to appear from it, escaping its shell. It rose, the cocoon still breaking off, and I saw it in full height. It was just like the creature in the forest and the one in the village. Somehow, I knew this was the blinded. I yelled as I squirmed, finally escaping the hands of the living statues. The monster before me began to shake, materializing into place, but before it could, I whipped out my gun and shot it 3 times. 2 bounced off its body, dropping to the floor. The 3rd hit the skull, which sounded a loud, hollow noise. And then the being fell and reduced itself to dust. I picked up the skull and I looked up. The statue was there. Not dust, but as it was before I had shot it. The skull was smaller now. I was about to turn and leave when I heard this crackling noise, and I looked to see 1,000 strange insects crawl out of the statues behind me.